Close your eyes if it feels right, or keep them open, whatever calls to you. We're about to step through a doorway that materializes only when the heavens weep. I'm standing here at the entrance to Monet's garden in Giverny, but not the Giverny captured in tourist photographs. This is the clandestine sanctuary that emerges solely on days like today, when the cosmos opens its heart and reality becomes fluid around the edges. Can you detect that sound? The way our steps sing differently in the rain. Each footfall lands with a whispered splash, as if we're walking through liquid watercolor that refuses to dry. That melody, identical to what Monet heard every storm-kissed morning when he journeyed to his easel. I must share something before we venture deeper. This expedition isn't truly about Monet, not entirely. This concerns something I uncovered after spending 17 years arriving here exclusively when the sky shed tears. Something the museum docents will never reveal because they've never stood here at dawn when the garden weeps. The security guardian, who typically seals the gates, whispered something to me last Tuesday that revolutionized everything I believed about this hallowed ground. He murmured, "You know what's extraordinary? During storms, visitors drift into slumber faster when they gaze upon the water lily canvases. Even hyperactive children become tranquil statues. It's as if the painted rain summons the actual precipitation. That revelation illuminated everything. We're not merely touring a garden today. We're entering a living meditation that Monet painted into existence across 3 decades of devotion. Let's move with the deliberation of Hani now. Urgency has no residence here. Time transforms when water descends from clouds and ascends from earth in ethereal mist. The cobblestones beneath our feet have absorbed 30 million raindrops since Monet first laid them. Each stone holds the memory of every storm, every gentle shower, every tear of joy that visitors have shed while walking this sacred path. I discovered something miraculous about rainy days here that took me 9 years to comprehend. The garden doesn't just look different in the rain. It becomes a completely different entity, a parallel universe where impressionism isn't an artistic technique, but the fundamental nature of reality itself. Watch how the lavender bushes bow their heads in reverence to the falling sky. See how the rose petals collected demons of water that magnify their color until red becomes fire, pink becomes sunrise, white becomes captured starlight. Monet understood that gardens aren't static displays of nature. They're living paintings that repaint themselves every moment, every season, every change in light and weather. But during rainstorms, the repainting happens, fast enough for human eyes to witness the miracle. The architect who designed this path knew secrets about human psychology that wouldn't be discovered for another century. The curves force you to slow down. You cannot rush around these bends without losing your balance. The garden itself teaches you meditation through the simple act of walking. I want to tell you about the first time I realized this place was alive. It was a Tuesday morning in October, 17 years ago. I had come here feeling completely empty inside. My mother had just passed away, and I couldn't find meaning in anything. Colors looked gray. Food tasted like cardboard. Even music sounded flat and lifeless. I wandered into this garden without any plan, just needing somewhere to exist that wasn't my apartment full of memories. And then it started raining. Not a gentle shower, but a proper storm that sent all the other tourists running for shelter. But I stayed. I sat down right here on this path and let the rain soak through my clothes, through my skin, through my grief, and something extraordinary happened. The garden began to sing, not literally, of course, but every surface the rain touched created a different note. The broad leaves of the hostas made deep drumming sounds. The narrow bamboo created high tinkling melodies. The stone path provided a steady bass rhythm. And the water, the water in the pond became a symphony of tiny bells as each drop created expanding circles of sound. For the first time since my mother died, I felt connected to something larger than my own pain. I understood that I wasn't just witnessing beauty. I was participating in it. The rain was falling on me the same way it fell on the flowers. I was part of the composition. That's when I knew I would spend the rest of my life learning to hear what this garden was trying to teach me. Ahead of us looms the legendary Japanese bridge, featured in over 250 of Monet's masterpieces. But I need you to forget everything you've been told about this structure, because what historians never mention is that Monet didn't paint the bridge as it existed in physical reality. He painted it as it existed in his soul, during storms exactly like this one. Step onto the bridge with me now. Feel how the wood yields slightly under your weight. Notice how it breathes beneath us like a living thing. This bridge was constructed from trees that grew in this region for over a century before Monet arrived. The wood remembers sunlight and storms, seasons and decades of weather. Here's what the prestigious art institutions will never confess. Monet suffered from advancing cataracts during his final 20 years. His vision became clouded, uncertain, dreamlike. But during rainstorms, when the entire world transformed into an impressionist masterpiece, when reality itself became soft and indefinite, that's when his compromised vision and the world finally achieved perfect harmony. I've stood on this precise spot during 73 different storms. I began counting after the Guardian shared his theory about sleeping visitors. And here's what I've discovered. The bridge shapeshifts with each storm. Sometimes it glows green-blue, like his 1899 series. Sometimes it pulses purple-pink, like his 1924 canvases. Today it shimmers silver-gray, like liquid mercury flowing beneath our feet. Gaze down at the water beneath us. Observe how each raindrop creates perfect circles that expand until they intersect with neighboring ripples, forming geometric patterns that exist for mere heartbeats before new ones replace them. Monet studied this exact phenomenon for 3 decades. Every storm day, he witnessed these temporary mandala patterns materializing and dissolving in his pond. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, he began to understand that this is what time actually resembles. Not a linear progression, but concentric circles of moments, overlapping and fading, and being reborn eternally. Select one raindrop, only one. Watch it kiss the water, and observe how far its influence spreads before disappearing. That drop, it originated from a cloud that formed yesterday above the Atlantic Ocean. It traveled hundreds of miles to arrive at this precise location, at this exact moment, just as your eyes were watching. That's not coincidence. That's the universe painting itself into existence, one drop at a time. But let me tell you something even more extraordinary. I've been tracking the weather patterns here for 7 years, and I've discovered something that meteorologists would call impossible. This garden creates its own weather systems. The way Monet arranged the plantings, the positioning of the pond, the height of the surrounding trees. It all works together to capture moisture from the air and encourage rainfall. The garden literally calls rain to itself. I first noticed this during a drought summer, when the entire region was parched and brown. Every garden for miles around was struggling to survive. But here, at Monet's garden, gentle showers appeared almost daily, just enough to keep everything lush and green. The local farmers started calling it the miracle garden. They would bring their children here during dry spells, believing that touching the water would bring rain to their crops. And you know what? It often worked. Scientists would say it's just microclimates and humidity patterns. But I think Monet understood something deeper. He knew that beauty and weather are connected in ways we don't fully comprehend. He designed this garden to be a love letter to rain, and the sky has been writing back ever since. We're approaching the epicenter of the enigma now, the water lily pond. But I need you to perceive it differently than every other soul who journeys here. When tourists visit during sunshine, they observe lilies floating atop the water, charming pink and white blossoms resting on emerald pads. Instagram-worthy, pleasant. But that's not what Monet was capturing on canvas. During storms like this, something transcendent occurs. The rain shatters the surface tension of the water. Instead of lilies floating on top, they appear to exist in 3 dimensions, suspended between the surface and the sky's reflection below. Look, truly look. Don't attempt to focus on any single element. Allow your eyes to soften, the way Monet's were forced to soften by his cataracts. Do you perceive it? The way the white lilies seem to pulse with inner luminescence. That's not the flowers themselves glowing. That's imprisoned light from the cloudy sky, held captive beneath the water's surface, escaping only through the translucent petals. This explains why Monet's water lily paintings seem to breathe with inner radiance. He wasn't painting flowers on water. He was painting captured light, learning how to escape. I'm going to share something that required 12 years for me to comprehend. Monet painted identical water lilies repeatedly, not because he was obsessed with botanical subjects, but because he discovered something that quantum physicists wouldn't understand for another century. Water holds memory. Every raindrop that has ever fallen into this pond remains here, in molecular form. The pond remembers every tempest, every gentle shower, every tear that has fallen into it, from visitors moved by beauty they couldn't quite name. I learned this from a hydrologist who was studying the garden's ecosystem. She told me that the water in this pond has been here for over 100 years. It evaporates and returns as rain, but it never really leaves. It just transforms and comes back home. She showed me water samples under a microscope, and I swear I could see history in those drops. Microscopic fragments of leaves from trees that died decades ago, pollen from flowers that bloomed in Monet's time, traces of minerals from rain that fell when he was still alive and painting here every day. The pond isn't just water and lilies. It's a liquid library containing the memory of everyone who has ever stood here, feeling what you're feeling right now. Wonder, peace, that peculiar ache that comes from encountering beauty that's almost too much to bear. Walk with me around the pond now. We're taking the Serpentine route. In Monet's era, this walk required about 7 minutes. Today, we're investing an hour, because rushing around beauty is like attempting to taste music or hear color. Theoretically possible, perhaps, but you'll miss the essence entirely. Listen to that symphony. Rain striking the lily pads creates different notes than rain hitting open water. The pads function like miniature green drums, each one tuned to a slightly different pitch, depending on its size and how much water it's already cradling. Monet called it the garden's whispered symphony. He claimed he could identify the season, the time of day, and even his emotional state just by listening to the rain's composition on the pond. I want you to synchronize your breathing with our walking pace now. Inhale and step. Exhale and step. Don't overthink the process. Just allow your lungs and feet to discover their natural rhythm together. This is what Monet practiced every storm morning. He walked this identical path, breathing this same air, until his heartbeat synchronized with the garden's pulse. Step, breathe, step, breathe. The emerald tones deepen today because of the rain. See how the wet leaves seem to absorb additional color from the sky. That's not imagination. Water amplifies color by creating tiny prisms in the surface, tension on each leaf. Step, breathe, step, breathe. Monet discovered that if he painted while walking this meditative circle, his brushstrokes would naturally match the rhythm of his steps. That's why his water lily paintings have that gentle, pulsing cadence. You can feel his walking meditation in every stroke. Step, breathe, step, breathe. The path curves here, following the natural contours of the pond's edge. Notice how Monet designed this walkway to mirror the organic shapes in his paintings. Nothing geometric, nothing forced. Every line flows like water itself. Step, breathe, step, breathe. A blue heron just landed on the far side of the pond. Can you see it through the rain? Standing motionless like a living sculpture. Monet painted hundreds of herons, but never as static birds. Always as meditation teachers, showing humans how to achieve perfect stillness. Step, breathe, step, breathe. That heron has been coming here for 6 years. Same time, same spot, whenever it rains. I've named her Patience, because she can stand completely motionless for hours, just watching the water, with an attention so complete, it makes me envious. I once timed her. 4 hours and 17 minutes without moving a muscle, just standing there, being present with whatever was happening in the pond. Fish swimming by, dragonflies landing on her beak, rain dripping off her feathers. She missed nothing, but she never chased anything either. That's when I understood what Monet was really teaching through his repetitive painting practice. It's not about capturing the perfect moment. It's about becoming so present, so attentive, that every moment reveals its perfection to you. Step, breathe, step, breathe. We're approaching my most treasured sanctuary now. The weeping willow that appears in 37 of Monet's paintings. But here's what's remarkable. He never painted it identically twice. Step under the willow with me. Notice how the rain sounds metamorphose here. Softer, more musical. The leaves function like nature's wind chimes, fragmenting each raindrop into smaller droplets that create a gentler symphony. This is where I come to release tears, not from sorrow, you understand, but from that particular overwhelm that beauty creates when it exceeds your heart's capacity to contain it comfortably. I call it beauty overflow, and this spot under the weeping willow was designed perfectly for such moments. I've never confessed this to another soul, but I believe the willow was Monet's crying sanctuary too. In 37 paintings of this tree, Not one depicts it during sunshine. Every single canvas was painted on a day when the sky was releasing water, just as we do when beauty becomes too vast to contain. Sit with me here for a while. There's a small bench that tourists never discover because it's concealed behind the drooping branches. From here, you can observe the entire pond through the curtain of willow branches. It's like witnessing the world through emerald tears. Everything becomes soft, impressionistic, dreamlike. Monet discovered something profound sitting in this exact location. He realized that tears and rain serve identical purposes. They transform our vision, making the ordinary world resemble a painting. I want you to half close your eyes now. Allow the garden to become blurry, undefined. This is how Monet perceived the world in his later years, and it's how he learned to paint light itself instead of the objects that light touches. When your vision softens like this, something miraculous happens. The boundaries between things begin to dissolve. The lily pads blend into the water. The water merges with the sky. The flowers become pure color floating in space. This is the secret Monet spent 30 years learning. Reality is not made of solid objects. Reality is made of light, constantly moving, constantly changing, constantly painting itself into new forms. I remember the day I truly understood this. I had been sitting under this willow for 3 hours, just watching the rain create patterns on the pond surface. My eyes had grown tired from focusing, so I let them relax and go soft. Suddenly, the entire garden transformed. Instead of seeing individual flowers and leaves and branches, I saw rivers of color flowing through space. Green rivers where the foliage was, pink and white streams where the lilies floated, silver tributaries where the rain fell. It was like seeing the garden's soul, its essential energy made visible. And I understood that this is what Monet was painting in his later works. Not the appearance of things, but their essence, their life force, their inner light. Behind the weeping willow lies a hidden bamboo grove that most visitors never find. The entrance is nearly invisible, concealed by overgrown ferns and wild irises. Follow me through this secret passage. The bamboo here grows in perfect vertical lines, creating natural cathedral columns that stretch toward the sky. But listen, do you hear that sound? That's the bamboo talking to itself in the rain. Each stalk is hollow, and when rainwater collects in the joints, it creates tiny water organs. The wind pushes through these natural instruments, producing tones that Buddhist monks have used for meditation for thousands of years. Monet discovered this grove during his 3rd year in Giverny. He never painted it, not once. But he came here every morning before beginning his work, standing among the bamboo for exactly 11 minutes, listening to what he called the earth's morning prayers. I timed my visits here for 2 years before I understood the significance of 11 minutes. That's exactly how long it takes for your nervous system to shift from the busy, thinking mind to the quiet, observing mind. Monet somehow knew this intuitively, decades before neuroscience could explain it. Stand here with me among the bamboo. Feel how the rain sounds different when filtered through these living columns. Each drop that hits a bamboo stalk travels down the interior hollow space, creating a sound like tiny bells ringing far away. This is where Monet learned to paint silence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. You can see it in his later works, that quality of profound stillness that seems to emanate from within the painting itself. The bamboo taught me something about time that I never learned from clocks. When you stand here among these vertical giants, listening to their hollow music, minutes feel like hours and hours feel like minutes. Time becomes elastic, responsive to attention, rather than driven by schedule. I once spent an entire day in this grove, from sunrise to sunset, just listening to how the bamboo sounds changed as the sun moved across the sky. In the morning, the hollow tones were high and clear. By midday, they had deepened to rich, resonant notes. Evening brought whispered melodies that seemed to come from underground. It was like listening to the Earth's daily song, the planet humming to itself as it turned through space. And I realized that this is why Monet never painted the bamboo grove. Some experiences are too sacred to capture. They can only be lived, felt, remembered in the body rather than preserved on canvas. There's another bridge in Monet's garden that art historians rarely mention. The iris bridge hidden behind a wall of purple iris blooms that flower only during spring storms. This bridge is smaller, more intimate than the famous Japanese bridge. Monet built it with his own hands during his 70th year, after his cataracts had advanced so far that he could barely distinguish shapes. He called it his feeling bridge because he navigated it entirely by touch and sound. Run your hand along the railing as we cross. Feel how worn smooth it is. Those are the marks of 10,000 touches from Monet's fingers, learning to see the world through his skin. From this bridge, he painted 17 canvases that were never exhibited during his lifetime. His family considered them too abstract, too strange. The paintings showed iris blooms as pure color, purple and yellow and white shapes floating in space with no recognizable forms. Art critics today call them proto-abstract expressionism, but I think there's something more profound. They're what the world looks like when you stop trying to see with your eyes and start seeing with your heart. The iris blooms beneath us are closed now because of the rain, but that makes them even more beautiful. See how they fold inward like hands in prayer. Monet painted them this way, not as open flowers reaching toward light, but as closed flowers containing light within themselves. He understood that beauty isn't always about display and exhibition. Sometimes the most profound beauty is hidden, private, held close, like a secret between friends. I discovered something extraordinary about these irises that changed how I understand memory and time. Each bulb in this garden is at least 70 years old. They were planted during Monet's lifetime, which means these flowers are direct descendants of blooms he actually saw and painted. The iris bulbs split and multiply underground, creating genetic copies that carry forward the exact DNA of the original flowers. So when we look at these purple petals, we're seeing the great-great-grandchildren of flowers that posed for Monet's brush. But here's what's truly remarkable. Plants can pass memories through their genetic material. These irises remember not just how to grow and bloom, but they remember the specific soil chemistry, the rainfall patterns, even the seasonal rhythms of Monet's garden. They bloom on the same schedule their ancestors did. They turn their faces toward the same angles of light. They respond to weather changes in patterns established a century ago. The flowers themselves are living memory, carrying forward the essence of Monet's original vision. At the edge of the garden stands Monet's greenhouse, its windows now clouded with age and weather. But during rainstorms, something magical happens to these windows. Stand here beside me at the greenhouse entrance. Look through these rain-streaked windows at the garden beyond. See how everything appears transformed. The glass and rain work together to create natural kaleidoscopes, fragmenting the view into impressionist masterpieces. This is where Monet spent his final winters, painting indoors while storms raged outside. But he positioned his easel so he could only see the garden through these imperfect windows, filtered through glass and water and weather. He told his friend Clemenceau that painting through windows taught him the most important lesson of his career. I learned that I was never painting the garden. I was always painting the light between me and the garden. Touch the window glass with me. Feel how cold it is. That cold glass is absorbing heat from the warm air inside, creating tiny temperature differences that cause the moisture to behave differently. Some areas fog, others remain clear, creating an ever-changing canvas of visibility and mystery. Monet would breathe on the glass like this, then quickly sketch what appeared in the brief moment of clarity before the fog returned. He called these breath paintings, capturing the world in the split second, between concealment and revelation. I spent an entire winter documenting the patterns that appeared on these greenhouse windows. Every breath creates a different shape. Every change in temperature produces new configurations of fog and clarity. I filled 37 sketchbooks with drawings of these ephemeral windows patterns, and gradually I began to understand that this was Monet's final teaching. Beauty doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Beauty emerges from imperfection, from fog and smears and obstacles, to clear vision. The most profound art happens not when we see clearly, but when we learn to find meaning in the blur. Behind the greenhouse, accessible only through a narrow gate that's nearly invisible when overgrown with vines, lies Monet's secret garden. Even today, most visitors never find this place. This is where Monet grew the experimental flowers that never appeared in his famous paintings. Varieties he created himself through crossbreeding, colors that existed nowhere else in the world. The path here is deliberately difficult to navigate. Monet wanted this space to remain hidden, accessible only to those willing to push through obstacles to reach it. He called it his private conversation with color. Look around you now. These flowers, I don't even know what to call them. Purple-blue roses that Monet somehow coaxed into existence. Yellow poppies that glow like captured sunlight. White lilacs that bloom in autumn instead of spring. This is where he came when the public gardens felt too exposed, too performative. Here, he could experiment with color combinations that would have seemed insane to the art critics of his time. During storms, this secret garden transforms into something otherworldly. The unusual colors become more intense, more impossible. It's as if the rain activates dormant genes in these hybrid flowers, bringing out qualities that remain hidden during ordinary weather. Monet painted here only 12 times that we know of. These canvases were found in his private studio after his death, never signed, never exhibited. They show colors that photography cannot capture, hues that seem to exist between the standard color spectrum. I've been coming to this secret garden for 8 years, and I still discover new flowers every time. Monet apparently planted seeds and bulbs throughout this space without keeping records, so even he didn't know what would emerge each season. It's like a botanical treasure hunt that continues decades after his death. Last spring I found a climbing rose that bloomed in 3 different colors on the same vine. Pink at the base, white in the middle, deepening to crimson at the tips. I've searched through every botanical reference I can find, and this combination appears nowhere else in the world. This garden represents Monet's ultimate artistic philosophy. True creativity requires a space away from judgment, away from expectation, away from the need to please an audience. Here, he could paint with flowers instead of pigment, experimenting with living color that changed and evolved beyond his control. The rain is intensifying now, creating deeper rhythms on the leaves around us. This is my favorite sound in the secret garden. Each different flower variety creates its own percussion note when struck by raindrops. The broad rose leaves make bass drum sounds. The delicate poppy petals create tiny cymbal crashes. The grass provides a constant whispered shimmering. It's a botanical orchestra that performs only during storms, and every performance is unique. I've recorded hundreds of hours of this garden's rain music, but no two recordings sound the same. The flowers grow and change, the seasons shift their positions, the storm patterns vary their rhythms. I once brought a musician here, a composer who specialized in natural soundscapes. He listened to the secret garden's rain symphony for 6 hours straight, taking notes on the different tonal qualities each flower produced. Later he told me it was the most complex musical composition he had ever encountered. He tried to transcribe it into musical notation, but eventually gave up. The rhythms were too irregular, the tones too subtle, the harmonies too fluid. It can't be captured or reproduced, he said. It can only be experienced, right here, right now, in this exact combination of flowers and rain and wind and time. That's when I understood why Monet kept this garden secret. Some experiences are too precious to share with the world. They require privacy, protection, the kind of intimate attention that's impossible in public spaces. There's a hidden pavilion deeper in the secret garden, built into a hillside so naturally that it seems to grow from the earth itself. Monet constructed it during his final year, when his cataracts had progressed so far that he could barely see shapes and shadows. Follow this overgrown path with me. The pavilion is invisible until you're standing directly in front of it. Monet designed it that way, as a place that could only be found by those willing to push through brambles and uncertainty. Step inside with me. Feel how the temperature changes. The pavilion is built partially underground, using the Earth's natural insulation to maintain a constant coolness even during hot summer days. But more importantly, the acoustics here are extraordinary. Sit with me on this stone bench that Monet carved himself. Now listen. Hear how the rain sounds different inside the pavilion. The curved walls focus and amplify the sounds from outside, creating a natural echo chamber that transforms the garden's whispers into a cathedral of sound. Monet spent his final months coming here every morning, sitting in darkness while his failing eyes rested, listening to the garden with an intensity that most people reserve for their favorite music. He told his doctor that he was learning to paint with his ears, creating compositions from pure sound. I found sketches hidden in this pavilion, drawings made by touch rather than sight. Monet would place his paper on this same bench and let his hand move across it, guided only by the sounds he was hearing outside. The resulting marks look like abstract music, lines that pulse and flow with the rhythm of rain and wind and growing things. These sketches were never meant to be paintings. They were meditation exercises, ways of staying connected to his artistic practice, even after his eyes could no longer see color clearly. They represent his final artistic innovation, discovering that creativity can flow through any sense, not just vision. I spent 3 months studying these sound sketches, trying to understand their relationship to the garden's audio rhythms. Gradually, I realized they were maps, not of the garden's physical layout, but of its emotional topography. The lines showed where beauty concentrated most intensely, where the garden's heart beat strongest. Following these maps led me to discover 7 more hidden spots in the garden that I had never found in years of exploration. Places where Monet had planted special combinations of flowers that created particularly moving sound combinations during rainstorms. Secret clearings where the acoustics transformed ordinary weather into transcendent experiences. The pavilion taught me that Monet's greatest masterpiece wasn't any single painting, but the garden itself, a living, growing, constantly changing work of art that continues to evolve decades after his death. Every season brings new combinations of color and sound and fragrance. Every storm creates temporary sculptures from light and water. Every year, the plants mature and shift their relationships, creating new compositions that Monet himself never witnessed. We are not just visiting a historical site. We are experiencing an artwork that is still being created, still discovering new ways to be beautiful, still teaching anyone willing to listen about the infinite creativity of life itself. Our time in the secret places draws to a close now, but the return journey through Monet's garden is just as important as the arrival. We see everything differently now, transformed by what we've experienced. Walking back along the same path, notice how changed your perception has become. The lily pond that we circled earlier now seems like an old friend. The Japanese bridge appears more welcoming, more familiar. This is what Monet understood about returning to the same subjects repeatedly. Each encounter builds upon the previous ones, creating layers of relationship and intimacy that deepen with time. The colors seem richer now on our return journey. That's not imagination. That's your nervous system learning to perceive more subtle variations in hue and tone. Spending extended time in natural beauty literally rewires your visual cortex, allowing you to see what was always present but previously invisible. Monet spent 30 years taking this same walk, morning and evening, in all seasons and weather. By the end of his life, he could detect changes in light and color that were imperceptible to other human beings. He had trained his eyes to see like no one else in history, but more than that, he had trained his heart to feel beauty so deeply that it overflowed into his paintings. His canvases became windows into a way of seeing that most people never develop. They show us not just how the garden looked, but how it felt to love a place so completely that you dedicated your entire life to learning its secrets. The rain is beginning to soften now, transitioning from steady downpour to gentle mist. This is my favorite part of any storm, when the intensity eases but the magic lingers. The air still smells like wet earth and growing things. The colors still pulse with extra vibrancy, but the urgency is gone, replaced by a calm contentment that settles over everything like a blessing. We're approaching the entrance where we began, but we're not the same people who entered this garden hours ago. Monet believed that true artistic experience changes the observer permanently. You cannot encounter genuine beauty and remain unchanged. Something shifts inside you. A door opens that can never be completely closed again. Stand here with me at the threshold between the garden and the ordinary world. Feel the difference in the air. The garden air holds more moisture, more fragrance, more possibility. The outside air feels thinner, less alive. This threshold represents the eternal challenge of beauty. How do we carry what we've experienced here back into the world that doesn't rain continuously, where gardens aren't always in bloom, where light doesn't always paint itself into masterpieces. Monet struggled with this question his entire career. How do you paint the unpaintable? How do you show others what you've seen when they've never learned to see it themselves? His answer was simple. You keep painting. You keep returning to the garden. You keep walking the same paths until they become part of your nervous system, until beauty becomes not something you observe, but something you embody. But I want to share with you the deeper secret I've learned from 17 years of rainy day pilgrimages to this garden. The real transformation doesn't happen while you're here, surrounded by obvious beauty. The real transformation happens when you leave, when you're stuck in traffic tomorrow, and you suddenly notice how the rain on your windshield creates temporary patterns of light. When you're walking through your neighborhood, and you see how the wet pavement reflects the street lamps like fallen stars. When you're having an ordinary conversation, and you hear music in the rhythm of someone's voice, that's when you know the garden has worked its magic on you. When beauty starts appearing in places where you never noticed it before. When your eyes become hungry for color and light and pattern in contexts that used to seem mundane. Monet painted the same water lilies for 30 years because he understood that true seeing is a practice, not a talent. Every day he trained his attention to find something new in the familiar. Every morning he taught his heart to fall in love again with light playing on water. The garden is not just beautiful. The garden is a teacher, showing you how to see beauty everywhere once you learn its language. The rain on these lily pads is the same rain that will fall on your roof tonight. The light that makes these flowers glow will illuminate your morning coffee tomorrow. The peace you feel here exists in every quiet moment, waiting for you to notice it. The rain is stopping now, but that's perfect timing, because now you understand what Monet knew. The real garden isn't here in Giverny. The real garden is inside you, planted by this experience, ready to bloom whenever you close your eyes and remember. But before we part ways, I want to share one final secret. The most important thing I've learned in 17 years of studying this place. Monet didn't create this garden to be admired. He created it to teach people how to love the world. Every color choice, every curve in the path, every placement of pond and bridge and flower bed was designed to awaken the capacity for wonder that modern life tends to diminish. This garden is medicine for hearts that have forgotten how to be amazed by simple things. The water lilies floating in the rain, the sound of footsteps on wet stones, the way light changes color when filtered through leaves. These aren't decorative details. They're doorways into a way of being alive that makes every day feel like a gift. Carry this with you. When the world feels too harsh, too angular, too defined, remember the soft edges of this rainy day. Remember how beauty can transform reality simply by changing how we see it. Remember that somewhere in France, water lilies are still floating on a pond that holds the memory of everyone who has ever stood at its edge and felt their heart open. Remember that rain still falls on bamboo, creating music that no human composer could improve upon. Remember that gardens still exist, where experimental flowers bloom in colors that exist nowhere else on earth. And remember that you carry a piece of all this beauty inside you now, not as a memory that will fade, but as a new way of seeing that will continue to reveal wonders you never noticed before. The garden will be here tomorrow and the next day, and for as long as human beings need reminding that the world is far more beautiful than we usually allow ourselves to perceive. But I have one more story to share before we truly say goodbye. Last month, I met a woman who had been visiting this garden every year for 43 years. She started coming as a young bride on her honeymoon, then returned annually with her husband, watching the seasons change, watching the garden evolve, watching their love deepen alongside the maturing plantings. Her husband passed away 2 years ago, but she still comes every spring, still sits on their favorite bench under the weeping willow, still walks the paths they discovered together. She told me something that changed how I understand the relationship between love and beauty. She said, "I used to think I came here to remember him, but now I realize I come here to remember how to love the world the way he taught me to love it, with complete attention, with endless curiosity, with gratitude for every small miracle." That conversation helped me understand why this garden affects people so profoundly. It's not just about aesthetic pleasure or artistic appreciation. It's about learning to love with the intensity and attention that creates lasting beauty in the world. Monet loved this pond, these paths, these flowers with such devotion that his love literally transformed them into something transcendent. His decades of careful attention, his daily practice of noticing and appreciating, his commitment to finding new beauty in familiar places. That love is still here, embedded in every stone and stem and reflection. And when we walk through this garden with open hearts, we're not just seeing what Monet painted. We're learning how Monet loved. We're practicing the kind of attention that transforms ordinary places into sacred spaces. The mist is lifting now from the pond, creating ethereal veils that drift between the lily pads like gentle spirits. This is the garden's way of saying goodbye, wrapping itself in mystery as our visit draws to a close. But remember, this isn't really goodbye. Once you've learned to see the way this garden teaches you to see, you'll find pieces of it everywhere, in puddles that reflect sky, in flowers growing through sidewalk cracks, in the way light falls across your kitchen table on rainy mornings. The garden's greatest gift isn't the beauty it shows you here. It's the beauty it teaches you to recognize everywhere else. I've watched thousands of people leave this garden over the years, and I can always tell who has truly received its teaching. They walk differently, slower, more attentive. They pause to notice things that rushed visitors miss. They carry a quality of peaceful attention that transforms everything they encounter. That's the real masterpiece Monet created. Not the paintings, though they are magnificent. Not even the garden itself, though it is extraordinary. The masterpiece is the transformation that happens inside people who learn to see the way beauty teaches us to see. You are leaving here changed, whether you realize it or not. Seeds have been planted in your awareness that will bloom at unexpected moments. A certain quality of light will suddenly remind you of today. A particular sound of rain will transport you back to the pond. A flower glimpsed from a car window will stop your breath with its simple perfection. These moments of recognition are the garden's way of continuing to teach you, long after you've left its physical boundaries. Monet understood that true art doesn't end when you stop looking at it. True art changes how you see everything else. The path to the exit curves one final time, giving us a last glimpse of the water lilies through the trees. They seem to be waving goodbye, their white petals catching what little light filters through the clouds. I want to leave you with a question that Monet asked himself every morning when he walked to his easel. How can I love this world more completely today than I did yesterday? How can I see with fresher eyes, feel with a more open heart, notice what I've been overlooking? These aren't questions with final answers. They're practices, daily invitations to deepen your relationship with beauty, wonder, and attention. They're the real techniques behind every great painting, every profound poem, every moment of transcendent awareness. The garden gate is closing behind us now, but the real gate, the one that opens in consciousness when we learn to see truly, that gate can never close. Once opened, it reveals a world where every ordinary moment contains extraordinary beauty, where every rainy day offers its own perfect symphony, where every garden, whether grand or humble, holds the possibility of transformation. Thank you for walking with me through Monet's rainy day revelations. Thank you for listening with the kind of attention that makes secrets willing to reveal themselves. Thank you for bringing your full presence to this journey through beauty and time and the eternal mystery of light playing on water. Carry this peace with you. Carry this sense of wonder. Carry the memory of rain on lily pads and the sound of bamboo singing in the wind. But most of all, carry the knowledge that you are surrounded by beauty at every moment, waiting to be noticed by anyone willing to see the world through eyes trained by love. The rain has stopped completely now. The clouds are beginning to part, but the garden's lessons continue to echo in the silence, rippling outward like circles on a pond, carrying their influence far beyond these walls, into whatever ordinary, miraculous day awaits you next. Sweet dreams, fellow traveler. Sweet dreams in gardens that exist wherever you decide to plant them, wherever you choose to water them with attention, wherever you remember that the world is always more beautiful than it appears to eyes that have forgotten how to see. The gate closes with a gentle click, but the garden remains open in every heart that learned today how to love a little more completely, how to notice a little more carefully, how to walk through the world with the reverence that transforms simple places into sanctuaries of wonder, until we meet again in that timeless space where beauty dwells, where rain falls on sacred ponds, where love creates lasting art from temporary light, and where every ending is secretly a new beginning in disguise.